All right, today we are diving deep into one of the most powerful and beautiful chapters of the Quran. We're talking about the 19th chapter, Surah Maryam, named after Mary herself. We're going to explore these incredible foundational stories of faith, mercy, and miracles, all from within this sacred text.
Now, the lens we're using to look at this is a specific Islamic commentary, something called a tafsir. And what that does is it lets us see not just the words on the page, but how scholars have understood them for centuries. The meaning, the context. It's a really fascinating way to get inside these stories. So, at the very heart of this chapter is a figure that billions of people around the world know and revere. But the Quran's telling of her story has some really unique details and a very distinct point of view. So the big question we're going to tackle is this. What does the Quran actually say about Mary, the mother of Jesus? Okay, so first things first, a little bit of context. Surah Maryam is what's known as a Meccan chapter, which means it was revealed early on. And its big themes, what it's really all about, are divine mercy and the idea that all the prophets are part of one long, continuous story. And that word I just mentioned, tafsir, it's super important for what we're doing today. See, a tafsir isn't just a simple translation. Think of it more like a deep dive analysis. It's scholarly work that breaks down the language, the historical context, and the deeper meanings behind the verses. And that's the lens we're looking through. So you might think a chapter named after Maryam would start right with her story. But interestingly, it doesn't. It actually kicks off with another story of a miraculous birth. It kind of sets the stage, It shows God's power to work outside the normal rules of nature. And this is the story of the prophet Zechariah, or as you might know him, Zechariah. Zechariah's story starts with this incredibly intimate, quiet prayer. There's just such a raw honesty to it. He's not trying to sound strong. He's laying it all out there. He says his bones are weak and his head flares with hoariness. What a beautiful, poetic way to talk about having white hair. But right after showing that vulnerability, he hits us with this powerful declaration of absolute, unwavering faith. So why is he so desperate? Well, the commentary gives us the full picture. Get this. He's supposedly 120 years old. His wife is 98 and known to be barren. But his worry isn't just about having a family. It's bigger than that. He's afraid that after he's gone, his corrupt relatives are going to take over and mislead the whole community. He's praying for a successor, someone to protect the faith. And the way the story unfolds from here is just beautiful. His prayer gets a direct answer. He's promised a son, Yahya. But the news is so impossible, It's so far beyond what he could expect that, in his very human amazement, he asks for a sign. And the sign he gets is a miracle in itself. For 3 days, he can't speak to other people. His voice is reserved only for remembering God. And this just highlights how special this child is going to be. The name Yahya, who we know as John the Baptist, was given directly by God. In fact, the commentary points out that no one had ever been named Yahya before. It was a completely new name to signify his completely unique purpose. So, this first story of an impossible birth builds perfectly into the chapter's main event. The theme of miracles keeps going, but now the spotlight shifts to the woman the chapter is named for, Maryam. The story paints a really vivid picture for us. Maryam is shown as this deeply pious woman from a well-respected family, and she makes a conscious choice to seek solitude. She goes off to a private place in the east, away from all the noise and distraction, just to devote herself entirely to worship. And it's here, in her seclusion, that an angel appears to her looking like a perfect man. When he tells her she's going to have a son, her reaction is just pure logical shock. She's not questioning God's power. She's just stating a fact of biology. How? No man has ever touched me. It's such a human, such a completely understandable question. And the angel's answer is really the key here. It just bypasses human logic and goes straight to the divine reality. It is easy for me. The whole point isn't to follow the laws of nature. The point is to create a sign for humanity, to be a source of mercy. The birth itself is the message. From here, the story gets incredibly dramatic. She's all alone, in labor, and she reaches this moment of total despair, wishing she just died and been forgotten. But right there, at her absolute lowest point, the miracles start to happen. A voice, which the commentary says is the infant Isa, Jesus himself, tells her not to be sad. A stream of water literally appears at her feet. And when she shakes the trunk of a dead palm tree, it rains down fresh, ripe dates for her to eat. Divine help arrives in the most real, physical way possible. So, the child is born, but her ordeal is not over. Not by a long shot. Now Maryam has to face her community. And this leads to maybe the most stunning miracle in the entire chapter. I mean, can you just imagine this moment? She's known for her piety, her devotion, and she walks back into town holding a baby with no husband in sight. The community's reaction is swift and it is harsh. They don't just ask questions, they straight up accuse her of doing something terrible and shameful. So what can she possibly say to defend herself? Well, according to the story, she can't say anything. She's been told to take a vow of silence. So facing these horrible accusations, her only response is a gesture. She just points to the baby in her arms. You can almost feel the crowd's disbelief, right? What? You want us to talk to a baby in a cradle? And then it happens. The climax of the whole story. The baby speaks, right there from the cradle. And with his very first words, the infant Isa not only clears his mother's name, but declares his own identity and his mission. It's a moment meant to just shatter every doubt. So, what did he actually say? I mean, what are the first words out of his mouth? Because it's not just a miracle. It's basically a manifesto. It lays out the core of who Isa is, right, from an Islamic perspective. Look at what he proclaims. The very first thing he says is, I am a servant of Allah, establishing that core relationship right away. Then he lists it all out. He's a prophet with a book. He has duties like prayer and charity. And this is so important. He defines his character. He's blessed, he's devoted to his mother, and he's not arrogant. And this is so cool because it loops us right back to the other miraculous child, Yahya. Both Yahya and Isa are given peace on the three scariest, most vulnerable days for any human: the day you're born, the day you die, and the day you're brought back to life. But the commentary points out this tiny but really significant difference. For Yahya, God bestows the peace on him, but Isa declares the peace for himself, which is said to reflect his unique status. And all of this brings us to the ultimate purpose of telling the story this way. After laying out all these incredible events, the Quran basically says, this is the saying of truth. It's presenting this version of events not just as a story, but as the story, a clarification that's meant to settle all the arguments and disputes about who Jesus and Mary truly were. You know, when you take a step back, this journey through Surah Maryam shows us this incredible narrative built on divine mercy, on miracles that just break all expectations, and on prophets who are all carrying the same basic message. And it leaves us with this really big question to think about, one that applies to all of us, no matter what we believe. How do the foundational stories we tell about our origins, our heroes, and our purpose, how do those stories end up defining who we are?